Well, it seems one of the things that I learned a lot about in 2021 and still continues to hear in 2022, and I did a video on this very similarly last year. I think it's when I was starting to do my Patreon, and I didn't make it a Patreon exclusive. I just put it on Patreon to kind of, let people know, hey, you can see this on YouTube and everything, and let people know, hey, you can find it at Patreon as well. But it's basically I talked about how Tails was, being, treated in some fan fiction stories as a ladies' man. And honestly, I could tell you without a fact that last year, after I did that video, I think I did it last year, I would go to places like fanfiction.net and other places people would recommend me to, and holy smokes, folks, I just don't honestly know how this is even possible, if you know what I mean. For example, I uploaded one of the stories here on my channel, which I said basically was, as I go to it, let's try to see if I can find it here. But I basically stated, it was one of my more recent podcasts that I did, not podcasts, but videos that I did late last year. Let me see if I can find it here. I think it's here somewhere. I don't know exactly which one it is, but it's here somewhere. Trying to see where it's at. Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can find it here on my see if I can find it here, for example. Okay, so here's the story here as I bring it up. Basically, the video is entitled "A Tails and Sally Fanfic," and then I put in parentheses that may not be for everyone, and I said it's a fanfic by the Cyber Fox, and the fanfic is called "A Mother in Need," and you can find this under fanfiction.net. The only catch is you have to use, one, you have to have an account, I believe, and you also have to look, and you also have to search under the mature settings as well. So instead of looking through like K to T, which is, kids, to teen, and all that, you have to, choose M for mature, and then you'll find the stories. But yeah, people like the Cyberfox did this story, and I'll tell you, if there's one thing that Cyberfox does in the stories that he does, focusing on Tails being the ladies' man, is every story has Tails, unleash sort of an inner beast, if you know what I mean. An inner beast that basically every girl that he hooks up with, and I mean hooks up with, if you catch my drift, submits to and enjoys. They just can't get enough of it. They can't get enough of the beast that Tails has unleashed upon them, in these stories. But it's not just the Cyber Fox either. It's not just Cyber Fox either that is doing this. Another one, and I'm bringing them up here right now. Another one is called where's my glasses at here for example? Oh, there they are. This one is called Fox Night UK 00. Okay, no, it's a Fox Night Yuku 009. That's how it's spelled, because one is smaller than the other, so I'm assuming it's, an O. But it's Fox Night UKO and then 009. And one of the stories he's currently working on, in fact, he recently updated it at the end of last year. He calls it the Harem of Miles Tales Prower. Now, Cyberfox also did something like that as well. I haven't read it just yet, but Fox Knight UCO 009, or Fox Knight as I'm going to call him, has done more on Tales, and letting this inner beast come out. For example, he's done two different versions of what he calls The Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius. The Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius is a remake of his original story called The Dissatisfied Wives Club. Basically, it's the same story, where Tails, according to the description, Tails can't go one day, or basically according to what Fox Knight says here, it's a remake of his original Dissatisfied Wives Club, and he says it's the same plot in where Tails one day goes to help out a hot wife, only to become her secret lover, and soon others will join in. And he does kind of indicate that you got to be over 18 to read it, thus it's under the mature section, and then it contains lemons, cursing, and some violence. And the reason it has some violence is because the one thing that Fox Knight does with some of his stories, and I think Cyberfox does the same thing, is he incorporates some story elements, some plot, to kind of connect to it. Like one of the main plots here is Tails is hooked up with Fiona, because now Fiona in this incarnation, in this fanfic, is realizing, what kind of a mistake she made hooking up with Scourge. Basically discovering what people have already told her about him, but not listening until it was too late. But the reason he decided to remake the Dissatisfied Wives Club is not only to keep the same story element, if you will, not just to keep the same story element, but he did it because there's one scene in there that he felt a little uncomfortable with, and he, in the original story, he put it to a vote of whether or not people wanted him to include the scene, and a lot of folks wanted him to include the scene. And that scene was Tails, hooking up and getting it on, if you will, with his own mom, Rosemary. Rosemary, of course, being his mom from the Archie comics. And, he asked, okay, do you want me to do this or not? And a lot of people said, go ahead and do it. And he put out a warning. He said, look, I don't condone this. I don't like incense. I don't like this kind of, storytelling when it's involved, when it gets put on this kind of a, plot advancement, if you will, when it gets added to a story or to help tell stories. He basically said he wasn't a fan of it. But he put it in there. Thus is the reason why he kept the original version, on his page, along with his newer version, the newer one being without the incense between the mother and the son. But here's the thing. He has another story in here. I think he has another story, I believe, or I think it's him or it's Cyberfox. I gotta see. I gotta check. Maybe it's in the favorite stories. But there's a okay. So I just looked at Tails Harem Tale. Cyberfox did do one. In fact, he did one. He recently updated it. And it sounds like, according to the description, very similar to Fox Knight's as well. So I gotta check. So I'll look into that. But anyway, there is a story. There is a story basically, and I think it's in here somewhere. I think it's in here somewhere. I gotta find it. I think it's here somewhere. But basically, I think it's in here somewhere. I'm not really sure. And then there's another person that does a harem story on Tales as well. But there's a story in here where he does hook up with his mom again in a very intimate way. But he does it in a way that's not, not basically as it's described in Dissatisfied Wives Club. It's basically just like, he needs to, be there for his mom because, the husband is out and the husband is like, look, son, you're the man of the house right now, so you take care of your mom. And because, he's not gonna be there, to help satisfy her needs, if you will, Tails basically, does it for her. He does it for her. Hey guys, sorry about that. My mom got up to get herself ready for bed so she can get up for work tomorrow, or in a few hours. But anyway, like I said, some of the stories just really just surprised me the way they were. Like I said, there's the story by Fox Knight, the horror of Miles Prower. There's this one on by Cyberfox called again, let me see if I can find it. Tales Harem Tale. And Cyberfox, actually, from what I noticed when I took that little break there, a little pause, actually had been working on it since about August of 2020, and he's now up to about, it looks like 21 chapters. So he's really going out with this, but the difference with this one, with this one is it takes place in an alternate universe where Tails is the husband of Fiona Fox. But unbeknownst to him, Fiona's been going around for the past year or so. And we find out that Fiona, was going around because she and the other wives of Mobius, that are Tails' friends, like I'm assuming Sally, Bunny, Amy, and all them, all made this agreement that that their husbands are a part of, the husbands are aware of this, that, they get to kind of have fun with each other, if you catch my drift. So Fiona has been having fun with a bunch of the husbands of the other female characters, waiting until the perfect time, I guess till Tails was like 18, 19 or something like that, because I guess she married him young or something, to finally get it on with him. And that's what happens in the first chapter from what I was able to look over. And like I said, Tails, obviously he's going to take part in this to where, I guess, for example, Sonic gets to have a good time with Fiona, and then Tails has a good time with Sally or something like that. So it's one of those intriguing tales, but to coin a phrase. Some of the stories that, I've looked into, that I've, been a fan of. In fact, I even have them here. This one is called, there's a story here called Love and Sex, and it is by JWH10, and he did this back in 2018, 2019. And this is where, because as I mentioned before I took that break, that little pause there, in the original version of the Dissatisfied Wives Club by Fox Knight, one of the scenes that he had wrote, was an incense scene between Tails and his mom, Rosemary from Archie, who's his mother from Archie Comics. And he even said before he did the scene, he asked whether or not in voting if anybody wanted to see it, and they said yes. And then he basically put a disclaimer saying that he doesn't condone this, he's not a fan of it, but he did agree that if it was voted for, he would put it together, and he did. Well, what JWH10 does in this story is Tails. The plot is Tails wants to, have his moment. If you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. He wants to have his moment one way or another. And he decides that, well, I got my moment, but why stop at just that? So it basically is very similar to the other ones. But when it comes to Rosemary, like I said, it's mainly because of the fact that, Amadeus is out, who's Rosemary's husband, Tails' dad, and Rosemary decides, okay, she needs comfort, she needs, some, comfort and everything, and, she decides to have Tails, help her out. Basically reminding him that his dad declared him in the man of the house until he gets back, so that in her mind the man of the house has some responsibilities. One of them being to satisfy the woman of the house, and in this case, it's her. Now, unlike the scene in the original Dissatisfied Wives Club by Fox Knight, this one is more like tame, if you know what I mean. More like, they get it on, they do have the moments and everything, but it's more tame. And, for example, when you get to the big climax, let's just put it that way, on both sides, in the Dissatisfied Wives Club, the original story by Fox Knight, basically the big climax occurs in more ways than one that could result in, the son becoming the father of his mother's baby or kit, whatever you want to call him. Here, when they get to that big climactic moment in this scene, Rosemary understands and senses where Tails is coming from, because she knows, hey, wait a minute, if he lets loose, within, it could be problematic. So she improvises, understanding where he's coming from. And then they have a round two later on in the night, where basically Tails can't really sleep. Rosemary, being a mother, you can see that, and she's like, I know what to do. And she decided to have a little, I guess you could say, reprise of what they did earlier, just not to the extent that they did, originally. So yeah. You kind of get that scene. So you get a very similar but not so intense scene like what you would with with Dissatisfied Wives Club by Fox by Fox Knight. But again, I think it's because of that one scene that he decided to recreate it as The Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius, because it's still the same premise, a little, but written a little differently, but very similarly. But also the fact that it doesn't include the incense. But the plot involving Rosemary is still there to an extent, to where she hires two characters or some characters to basically investigate, what's going on. Like in both versions, she wants to know, why is Tails, meeting up with all these different women. And in the original version, she kind of has an idea. I think. Let me double check here. But yeah, she kind of has like an idea, if you will. Like she has an idea. Basically, and let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, it's Blaze. She hires Blaze in the original version to do the investigating, but in the new, which is again the original version is the Dissatisfied Wives Club, but in the remake, which is the Adventures of Tails and the Wives of Mobius, I think. Oh no, the Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius. Rosemary hires Whisper and Tangle to make it feel more, I guess, updated. And basically, both reasonings for hiring these characters in both stories is to find out what's going on. Even though in the original she kind of has a strong suspicion as to what's happening, and she's basically determined that hey, if anybody's going to be, my son's main squeeze, it's going to be me, kind of deal. Well, in the remake that he did, where she hires Whisper and Tangle instead of Blaze, she's just more curious and suspicious as to what is going on. It's like why are these girls always calling my son to do these repairs or these lookovers and stuff like that, and at certain times during the day and night, it just doesn't add up. So there are similarities between the two stories, but there are differences, if you catch my drift. But again, like I said, that's not the only story because, like I said, Cyber Fox has the story that I did a capture of here on my computer called A Mother in Need. And basically, the Mother in Need, it takes place like a lot of these stories do in an alternate universe. And in this universe, Tails is dating Sally. And the reason this is called A Mother in Need is mainly because of the fact that, Alicia, here's the thing. Like I said, Tails is dating Sally in the story. And the big difference and the big comparison difference of relationships in the story is that even though Tails and Sally have a very intimate relationship, if you catch my drift, the opposite could be said for Sally's parents. And it gets to a point to where Sally notices something's going on. She asks her mom. Her mom finally lets her know. And then Sally's like, you know what, Mom? What if I was to convince Miles to, work with both of us, if you catch my drift. And she's basically, to put it bluntly, she wants to share Tails with her mom. Now, give Cyber Fox some credit. With his story, with this kind of a story, he does have Alicia, that's her name, Sally's mom's name from the comics and all that. He does have Alicia try to tell her daughter, no, I can't do that, that's wrong. And yet her daughter's like, Mom, Dad's going to be gone for a month. You need this. What better opportunity can you ask for? And what better opportunity do you have not to pass up when you have the opportunity to do it? That's basically how she's looking at her like saying, hey, opportunity's right in front of you. You got a month to take advantage of it. Why not go for it? So she's able to convince her mom. Then she tells Tails. Tails inevitably agrees. And let's just put it this way. A nice little threesome takes place. And what's interesting is in this story, they have Alicia and Sally kissed. Like, Tails has one of those big, I would say burst, if you will, between the fluffy pillows, as people describe them in these kind of stories. And basically what happens is while Tails is trying to catch his breath after that moment, Alicia and Sally are cleaning, if you catch my drift, the faces off each other, or cleaning each other's faces off of the moment. And it's doing this that Tails sees what they're doing, starts to get a little bit more turned on, but then really gets like boom, eyes almost bulge out of his head, surprise turned on when he notices that while they're cleaning the moment off each other, that both Alicia and Sally end up kissing each other. And it doesn't lead to anything like we've seen, like I've heard some other stories have led to, like there's the Sweet Royal Love one that's out there. It doesn't lead to anything like that, but still it's for a character like, in the story like Tales, to see something like this, it is a shock. Like, whoa, I never, like, whoa, I expect Sally to do this with any other girl, but not her mom, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's stories like that. And again, the one thing Cyberfox does, and even Fox Knight carries this on with their story, is Tales, and I'm sure others do the same thing, is Tales lets out this uncontrollable beast. This, very, um, I guess you could say, dominating beast within him. It's like, the predator side of him comes out and just dominates. He just becomes the dominator, if you will, to the point that every female character that, experiences this dominating side of him submits to him in the craziest of ways. The craziest of ways. I mean, in Fox Knight's harem, in the Fox Knight's story of, the harem, I should say, the harem of Miles Tales Prower. In his story, in some of the chapters, the girls that Tales encounters and has the moment with, and who experience this dominating beast side of his, always end up calling him master. And it all results with them moving in and being part of his harem. And again, you see a similarity thing with the Tales Harem Tale, if you will, by Cyberfox. But again, the difference is the husbands are in on it, and it's more like an exchange. Like I said, Sally has time with Tails, Fiona has time with Sonic, stuff like that. But yeah, overall, looking back at 2021 and going into this year, it's like I cannot really. It still blows my mind that out of all the Sonic characters, male and female, video game established, comic book established, multimedia established, that the one that always is focused on when it comes to really getting it on, if you know what I mean, is Tails. And I don't know what the reasoning is. I guess it's because, the character design makes him adorable and cute, even when he gets older, as depicted in some of the stories by Archie Comics and stuff, that no girl can resist him. So, yeah, it's surprising. What I'm trying to say, and it's late while I'm doing this, but it was really surprising to notice these kind of stories, to know that there's more than just one. There's more than just one. I mean, there's even a story that takes place years in the future, obviously, where Tails is older, and Bunny and Sally want to, have a certain itch scratched that the husbands will not scratch, even though they could. And Tails provides that itch for them, and it's done in a way to where one version has Bunny and Sally teaching him, if you will, while the other is just like, yeah, they get it on. It's like Tails knows instantly what to do, if you catch my drift. And that's about it. But yeah, it was kind of surprising year to see that there's a lot of these kind of stories out there involving Tails. I mean, there are stories with Sally and her mom hooking up, like I said, with Sweet Royal Love, and a few others out there, like Sally and Nicole, and I think Amy and Sally, and I think Sonic and Amy, and Sonic and Sally, and Tails and Fiona, and Tails and Cosmo, Nicole and Tails, Antoine and Bunny, Bunny and Tails, believe it or not. But yeah, there's a lot of stories out there besides just the ones I've mentioned. But the one, like I said, the one character out of all those characters, Sonic-wise, that gets the most attention in these, and the most focus, is Tails. And that's what really surprised me in 2021 and going into 2022. But what are you guys' thoughts? What are your thoughts of the fact that, Tails becomes the focal point of these kind of stories? How do you feel about them? And personally, have you read any of them? Let me know down below in the comment section, so I was doing the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, check me out at my Teespring store. Also check me out at BW Rose's Discussions on all your favorite audio platforms, except for Pandora. And also, if you're listening to me on Spotify or Amazon, any podcast affiliate that enables video podcasting along with audio, you'll have your choice of one or the other. And if you're listening to the podcast on Anchor.fm, listener support is activated. Guys, I am close to 300 podcasts, so get ready for that eventually. Also, check me out at BW Roses on VENMO. Also, check me out at patreon.com/BW Roses to support me with the $1, $3 tier, and potentially a $5 tier for Q&A if I decide to do one. Don't hold me to that. And also check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2. But let me know what your thoughts are. Have you read some of these stories that I've mentioned at fanfiction.net by Fox Knight UKO009 and the Cyber Fox, amongst others, like JWH10? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. And I am out.